Thank you, friends. Thank you for joining me back here for the next chapters of Pinky and Meggy Starstruck, as we're almost to the end of this first little story in the Bringers of the Light Oakwood series. You can find this ebook anywhere ebooks are at: Google Books, Apple Books, Barnes and Nobles. If you want to download the ebook, all my ebooks are free to read. And then you could follow along with this audiobook as we continue on with this little journey. Today we are in a magical spring forest by a beautiful flowing river and a nice, bright, happy campfire among the spring flowers. As we dive into chapter 23, Randy, the human matchstick. Randy sat up in his bunk. Something just didn't seem right. After the Halloween show and then watching the girls Lila and her friend at the ritual, Randy had decided to lay down for a while. He'd done so many shows this year, and he was a little tired. He'd napped for a bit, but some sort of siren song was calling him. He stepped out of his cabin and listened again. This song wasn't playing physically in his ears. It was some lilting melody that crept into his heart and just called him. It felt like he was being called home, or somewhere that felt like home. Now Randy was new to Oakwood, like most of the Pixie Carnival gang, and so he wasn't aware of its beguiling magics. The song was emanating from somewhere deep in the woods of the carnival grounds, and its song was like a magical finger that drew Randy further in. Now, Randy wasn't a naive person. He'd been called the human matchstick for a reason. His parents had seen him one day outside soaking up the sun rays like he loved to do, and then all of a sudden, to their eyes, Randy burst into a bright orange flame, or so they thought. They doused him with water and were so scared that he was combusting and would turn to ashes like they'd read about in so many magazines. But Randy held a different kind of fire. It wasn't one of hatred and retribution. It happened when he loved something so much that he couldn't hold back his desire any longer. He simply loved love and would at first spontaneously shapeshift into a flame guardian. Over the years, he had learned to control his shape-shifting a little better. But when he really, really loved someone or something, he burst into a kaleidoscope of different colored flames. As a carnival performer, he used his familiar as the catalyst. He really loved that silly ocelot, and the two would shapeshift into all manner of flames and other high-frequency colors and orbs, delighting the carnival crowd. Well, this siren song had Randy by the heartstrings. What was it, and where was it coming from? He had to find out. He slipped into his felt fairy boots that Melody, the cotton candy girl, had gifted him for Secret Santa last Christmas, and made his way towards the liminal space at the forest edge. On the other side of the siren song was one little fairy girl, playing her heart out on the lyre. The lyre song danced and curved around the forest, and soon the girl had a whole following of forest folk at her feet, swaying and dancing to the song she was crafting. Randy soon emerged into the clearing where everyone was crowded around the lyre fairy. She didn't have to be named, because the notes of her heart and the song of the lyre were her calling card. And wherever she went, she drew this crowd of joy seekers, love makers, dancers, and song singers. Randy, who grew tired of wanting to have the courage to find his human best half, just swooned and danced at the feet of the lyre fairy. He spontaneously burst into his color flames, delighting everyone that was there. And soon, all the lost and lonely souls and beings who gathered at the lyre fairy's feet didn't feel so lost or lonely anymore. Chapter 24, Christmas Kringles. Harry Winterbottom and Pinky glided along on their snowshoes. It had been 2 months since the Halloween party where they'd met and reconnected after so long. Pinky was wide-eyed and deeply in love with Harry, and he the same, but they had decided not to make any serious commitments until 1 year had passed. "You meet me under that mistletoe branch next Halloween, and I'll show you how much I care," Harry had said to Pinky, quelling his desire. They'd also agreed not to make love until the Beltane fires were lit. If they were still together by then, and Harry had remained true to his heart and Pinky to hers, well, then they were on their way to a match made in heaven. Right now, they were enjoying each other's company and snowshoeing it down to Popover Bakery to try the big hit this year, Christmas Kringle cookies. They were all the customers at Relics could talk about, describing them as a cross between shortbread, crispy wafers, and something else that one couldn't quite put their finger on. As Pinky opened the door to Popover, she felt a dark breeze pass her by. She could just make out a wispy figure holding a pink bakery box with a star sticker on it. Tamara passed by Pinky and blew out yellow smoke to disguise herself. Those elven girls were not supposed to be trifled with, Tamara reminded herself, as Claudius's warning stuck in her brain. "Talk to those girls and you're out," he'd snarled the other night, after coming into the Coven house through the back door looking weathered and disheveled. He'd had blood on his hands, and his demeanor was rather cantankerous. Best not to mess with him when it was like this, Tamara had thought, as Claudius had taken to his coffin room, where he still was 2 days later. Something was up, but Tamara wouldn't ask him unless he brought it up. Pinky averted her eyes from Tamara and ordered 24 Kringles, some for her and Harry, some for Meggy and Lila, some for the party they'd be having with a few friends, and some for the spirit plates she would set out for the house spirits. All was right in Pinky's world right now, as she and Harry shared a crunchy Kringle under the mistletoe tree. They locked eyes, and Pinky felt like she could see forever into Harry Winterbottom's soul. Chapter 25. Harry's Dilemma. Harry awoke to bright sunlight, and the room of the cottage he'd rented in Oakwood for the season glinted with gold and pastel lights. The crystal maker in the window threw rainbow light around the cozy bedroom, and the fire he'd lit in the wood-burning stove in the wee hours of the morning glowed with ash and cinders. Harry felt strange inside, and he didn't understand why. He needed to wake up several times during the night to... well, he didn't know what he was supposed to do. He felt restless, yet calm at the same time. He decided upon rising to go riding out in the forest of Oakwood for a while to clear his mind and his energy. He found a stables not far from the city that held all manner of riding horses, and he'd settled on a dappled gray mare with kind eyes. Harry hadn't ridden in quite some time, and he realized how much he missed the ceremony of riding. He put on his riding chaps and his polo sweater, his cap that he liked to wear in the woods, and his gloves. The horse had been prettied up, too, with a dark leather saddle and stirrups. The mare, named Honeysuckle, eyed him curiously as he coaxed her with some oats and a few carrots. One should approach a new animal friend with care and courtesy, and rather than jump right in the saddle, take some time to build trust and understanding between the two. Harry let Honeysuckle know that he just wanted a relaxing trail ride through the forest trails, and the horse relaxed. She'd heard her hoof a while back when some brash teenager had tried to make her gallop over some cobblestones on the outskirts of town. She disliked being ridden by brash youth and preferred a more experienced rider who knew how to respect other non-human souls. Harry and Honeysuckle bonded quickly due to his calm yet powerful demeanor. Honeysuckle could tell that he knew how to handle himself on horseback, and so they trekked up the path and out the gate of the stables to the adjacent trailhead. Harry felt younger again, and he whistled as he gently coaxed the mare down the gravel path. The stable owner said it was a 5-mile out-and-back trail ride, and one would be fine if they stayed on the path. Best not to be distracted too much on the path, lest one get pulled off the main road and onto somewhere else mistaken for the way. Harry and Honeysuckle rode quietly for a few miles as Harry felt the tension release from his body. He'd been too entranced in this Pinky relationship, and, well, suffice it to say his love drive was suffering. Not making love to anyone for at least the next 5 months. He wasn't sure he would make it. Now, there are other ways to quell one's desires, but Harry loved the female body so much. Well, he loved Pinky too, he reminded himself, although he was still a little fuzzy about how they'd come together in the first place. Oakwood's high-frequency vibrations could often imbibe someone so much so that, if they weren't used to it, would make them dizzy and discombobulated. Harry was certain he loved Pinky, right? He felt weird inside as time began to slow down around him. His arousal meter went His arousal meter went sky high as he sensed someone close by. Honeysuckle whinnied, and Harry realized that she was asking for a break. That hoof could act up without warning, the stable owner had told Harry. Best to let her rest for a moment and then carry on. So Harry did just that, excited that he would have a moment to follow this sense he had that someone was close by. He tied the mare to an old oak tree and asked the tree guardian to watch the horse, who already seemed to have bonded with the dryad who watched over the tree. She was in good company, he thought, as he, doing what he'd been warned against doing, stepped off the main path and through a little thicket of hawthorn bushes. Well, that was that as it goes. Harry was soon feeling, here we go, what happens when you go in your hawthorn trees. He was soon feeling an excitement so strong that he almost couldn't breathe. He took deep breaths as an exotic scent filled the air. The leaves of the fig tree. He wondered how figs were growing in the winter, but we digress. The air became tropical, and the tree seemed to shift as if he'd been deposited in some remote island in the South Pacific. Harry heard a ukulele playing, and his skin felt damp to the touch, even though Oakwood's forecasted temperatures that day were only supposed to be in the mid-30s. And then he felt the arousal as a being of some magic surrounded him. He felt a light touch on his forearm and a tickle at the back of his neck. His skin prickled, as he was no stranger to the seductions of other beings. Harry had a thirst for all types of encounters, corporeal and not so much so. He turned slowly and sucked in his breath. The most beautiful fairy woman he'd ever seen was standing before him. Dressed only in a thin sheath of a garment, she sparkled like alabaster. Harry didn't know what to make of her. He wasn't sure what had happened to him or why he was even out here as the enchantment folded in around him. In his mind, he heard her whisper, "Follow me, and I'll make all your fantasies come true." Well, needless to say, friend, he followed the fairy further off the main gravel path. He wanted to lay down with her on the soft moss that was placed in the clearing where she lay down, opening her legs and beckoning him in for a taste. He paused, only momentarily, and visions of Pinky danced before him. He was supposed to remain true to her, he reminded himself. He was supposed to renounce these dalliances and make her his betrothed. But one little sip of this fairy's magic wouldn't hurt any, would it? But it was much too late for reasoning now. He'd already been enchanted, and so he did what Harry Winterbottom prided himself on doing so well. He lay down with the Tangerine Aura fairy in her magical lair and made love to her until who knows how long had passed. He heard something ping his mind as he woke from the fairy's embrace and wiped the sweet juices off his lips. A horse was calling him. He knew something about a horse. He tried to recall what it was as the fairy licked the back of his neck, wanting more of him. Oh, he could lay here like this forever, satiating every desire, he thought, but the horse pinged louder, reminding him of his promise to be back soon and letting him know that she was still tied to the oak tree where he'd left her. He recalled through the tangerine aura crystal haze around him that he needed to get back to the cottage, that Pinky was supposed to be coming by for dinner tonight. He relinquished control to his higher self, since his lower nature was no good at doing anything right now. At least he had the wherewithal to do that. His higher self pulled him out of the sexual stupor and made him stand up. The tangerine fairy protested, pulling him back down for more. Harry looked into her crystal aura eyes and told her he could come back tomorrow. Heck, he'd come back every day for this type of action. She released her hold on him, certain he would remain true to his word, and sealing this with a lust kiss and an enchanted tangerine aura quartz point that she slipped into his pocket. He wouldn't get away so easily, she decided, as the lovemaking with him had been so pleasurable that she too wanted more, maybe much more. Harry stumbled out of the clearing and back through the hawthorn hedge and out onto the gravel path by the oak tree, where Honeysuckle waited somewhat patiently. He thanked the oak tree dryad and apologized to the mare, who was sure would not understand the reason for his dalliance. They rode the few miles back to the stables with Harry still enveloped in the fairy's enchantment and love-making spells. He vowed to get back to her as soon as he could, while simultaneously reminding himself that his love, Pinky Elvin, would be along soon for their dinner together. Yes, he had a dilemma now, Harry thought to himself. He had already broken a promise to his girl. Or had he? Did making love to a fairy girl count against his promise to Pinky? He wasn't sure. So he decided to forget about it for now and get ready for her arrival. The tangerine aura quartz in his pocket, pinging him on and off with a sweet reminder to return to his love as soon as possible. All right, friends. Well, we are going to stop here because I do caution you against only taking little sips of the tangerine aura fairy's magic and enchantments. Pay attention to what happens within the next hours after hearing this story. It's all for the best, highest good of all. But she's very, very powerful. So take care. And we will see you. The next thing we do will be the final chapters of Pinky and Meggy, Starstruck. Take care. This episode was brought to you by Auntie Bear's Smokehouse and Pancake Kitchen, Whistling Gulch Retreat's premier restaurant, open all day and all night. You'll find pretty much anything you could want at Auntie Bear's. Come on in for a chicken fried steak special, hot cross buns, or their famous blueberry lemon pancakes. Auntie Bear's Smokehouse and Pancake Kitchen, open all year round for your dining convenience. With the flick of her pen, she writes,